Saw dudes, my Mirage Prime video just came out, and as usual, I stress tested her in level cap. For simplicity's sake, I tested out the Pillage build since it offers great solo performance and can massively help teams going for a high number of Equalizer clears. If you guys would be interested in another level cap run with one of the other builds I featured in my prior video, let me know. The run itself went as you would expect it to. It was smooth and had very few issues. After my glowing review of Mirage Prime in my dedicated build video, it should be no surprise. Her damage is something that you can't eclipse. Let's get started. The Mirage Prime build is the exact same as one shown in my previous video and focuses solely on high ability duration and strength. The aura is up to preference, but I chose to run corrosive projection to reduce armor and thus increase damage. I used Prime Sure-Footed in the Exile slot to prevent knockdowns since they are a death sentence to Mirage. Prime Continuity and Narrow-Minded increase our ability duration, drastically increasing the duration of Hall of Mirrors and Eclipse. Blind Rage and Transient Fortitude increase ability strength, which affects Eclipse's damage buff and Pillage's armor strip. Rolling Guard grants iframes, and Prime Flow increases energy reserves to 641. Total Eclipse allows the Eclipse buff to be shared with our holograms for higher damage. Hall of Malevolence increases our holograms damage by 5% up to 50% on kill while Hall of Mirrors is active. Pillage was my preferred helmet ability for this run. Casting the ability releases an expanding aura that shreds shields and armor from enemies and returns shields to our Warframe. Allies hit by the wave have their negative stats effects cleansed, allowing for a nice support utility. Because the expanding radius is affected by ability duration, Pillage is perfect with our build. The extra shield gating flexibility allows for better survivability on top of Rolling Guard. Molt Augmented and Arcane Energize were my go-to arcanes. Molt Augmented further increased ability strength, which Mirage loves since it increases the Solar Eclipse damage buff. It also increased the defense strip from Pillage, allowing for higher damage from weapons and for our allies. Energize helped pad out energy levels and kept us from being a fish out of water. The Archon Shards are the same as the ones I outlined before. I have 2 Tauforge Crimson Shards, 2 Tauforge Violet Shards, and 1 Tauforge Amber Shard. The 2 Tauforge Crimsons granted 15% duration and 15% strength respectively. I just wanted a bit more leeway with Hall of Mirrors and Eclipse, so I split the bonus up. If I had to choose one bonus to go with though, I would go for double duration. The Violet Shards acted as a mini equilibrium, so I didn't have to use a mod slot. Finally, the Amber Shard increased casting speed for a better quality of life. The primary weapon I used this time was Tenet Glaxion with a magnetic progenitor to increase damage against shields and overguard. The mods I used were Galvanized Chamber, Galvanized Aptitude, Critical Delay, Vital Sense, Hunter Munitions, Rifle Elementalist, Photon Overcharge, Hammer Shot, and Vigilante Supplies in the Exile slot. Primary Frostbite was my chosen arcane. The most important mod in this build is Photon Overcharge, since it grants a heightened chance for enemies affected by cold procs to drop an energy orb on death. For a power-hungry frame like Mirage, this is huge. For the secondary weapon, I ran Prisma, Angstrum, and Incarnon. The evolutions I used were Paladin Virtue, though you should have used Haven Foray instead, Rapid Reinforcement, and Critical Parallel. Even with the wrong evolution, this gun shredded through crowds with no issues. Please excuse my smooth brain. It's been a long week, and it's only Monday. The mods are the standard that I have used in past runs, and jack up crit stats and heat weight to make sure this thing is a status monster. Galvanized Shot is a multiplicative bonus on this weapon, so you can make the Tenet Glaxion a status beam if you want to take full advantage of the damage potential. The melee weapon I chose to use was Praedos for the extra movement capabilities on top of Mirage's amazing passive. The evolutions I used were the standard Drifting Grace, Shockwave Synergy, Evolved Ascension, and Universal Readiness. The mods I used were Sovereign Outcast, Dreamer's Wrath, Prime Reach, Conditioned Overload, Blood Rush, Weeping Wounds, Galvanized Elementalist, Prime Fury, Organ Shatter, and Galvanized Steel. This is the normal crit Poggies parkour build that I use all the time. For the Panzer build, I went with the standard one I have shown in my other showcases. As expected, I used Tenacious Bond and Reinforced Bond since they increase crit damage and fire rate respectively. Seismic Bond is a flex slot and something that I forgot to switch out, even though it procs on using Prism. This slot can be taken up by anything else you would like. The Panzer Claw build is largely the same as other showcases. I used Balanced Posture to ensure all enemies were primed effectively with Viral. Shocking Claws drastically increases status chance and applies electric damage. While we don't have Archon Stretch on Mirage, the electric procs provided by the mod give us a nice bit of crowd control. Bite increases crit chance enough to give us a crit damage bonus via Tenacious Bond. The rest of the mods increase the damage that the Panzer does and primes them for attacks from our weapons. Madurai is the de facto focus school in Void Cascade. For Mirage, I feel that is the best focus school and plays into her strengths while also somewhat making up for her weaknesses. Power Transfer further decreased the long casting animations that Mirage has and made life a lot easier. The lowered animation time allows for an easier time dodging fire. Inner Gaze and Eternal Gaze are just operator amp bonuses and are geared towards killing Thrax units. Contamination Wave made headshot crits against Thrax units lethal. Sling Strength granted a 40% ability strength buff on a back-to-back Void Sling, which is nice in a pinch. Finally, Void Strike and Void Fuel made insta-kills on on Thrax a cakewalk. Void Fuel was especially nice since it allowed Mirage and her clones to spam Tenet Glaxion for a longer period and lock down entire rooms. Unfortunately, the ammo efficiency does not work on Incarnon weapons in their alternate mode, but that's alright since the damage buff is more than enough. The amp I used was a standard 147 or Certus Brace, Raplac Prism, and Fat Scaffold. This is the amp I have been using for months, and I recommend you try it out for level cap runs. I use Magus Cloud, Magus Lockdown, Eternal Eradicate, and Eternal Onslaught as my operator arcanes. Now let's talk about the run. The run was really nice and was extremely easy thanks to some great teammates. Towards the later half of the run, we were running as a squad of 3 since one of our teammates had bugged out and left. I'll go through the abilities one by one to give a better picture of how Mirage was effective, then move on to more general aspects. Hall of Mirrors was great for survivability and increasing the damage of Tenet Glaxion and Prisma Angstrum. In particular, it made Prisma Angstrum an absolute menace, since the duplicated rounds also bounced around, spreading more heat procs and ricocheting between heads. The Hall of Malevolence augment increased damage for the holograms on kill, which is great for scaling missions. Since the build had above 240% total ability strength, the duplicated Prisma Angstroms actually had better crit stats than the original. So yeah, just big damage. The survivability aspect of the ability came from directing enemy aggro towards the holograms and away from Mirage. It didn't protect against explosives or Eximus attacks, but the divided aggro was helpful nonetheless. Pillage, which was subsumed over sleight of hand for the defense strip capabilities and shield gating, was really nice for me. I was much more interested in the shield gating tech it held since Mirage is very squishy. Without Pillage, I think the run would have been a lot more intense. The armor strip was really cool, but I think I could have made do without it since I have a corrosive primer as my primary weapon, which is Tenet Glaxion. I would just have to switch the mods around a little bit. Eclipse was the star damage buffer. Without it, damage fell flat, and it was just alright. Total Eclipse allowed holograms to use the damage buff, which stacked with Hall of Malevolence for even dumber crit numbers. There's not much to say about this ability other than that it was carrying the run. Finally, we have Prism. Honestly, it didn't do too much. It had very low damage compared to my guns, and the blind radius sat at a measly 10 meters. It wasn't completely useless as it could slow down crowns with its blind and give me some breathing room to reload, but it wasn't doing anything that my Tenet Glaxion couldn't already handle. On to the more general stuff. Mirage Prime's damage is nothing to scoff at, and neither is her maneuverability. Her passive makes her maneuvers faster, like jumping, rolling, side-springing, and back-springing. In a fast-paced game mode, her quick moves were a super nice skill to have. Her agility made her hard to hit, which when combined with Hall of Mirrors made killing crowns of normal enemies quite easy. Rolling Guard and Pillage filled in any gaps and user errors, but there's not much that you can mess up. Also, the build was perfect for Mirage. The low range and efficiency did nothing other than cause minuscule energy issues. Hall of Mirrors and Eclipse, to a degree, don't scale off of range, meaning there's no damage loss. Pillage does technically scale off of range, but doesn't need it, since duration allows the aura to expand for longer and affect more enemies. As for final thoughts, I think Mirage Prime is a great Warframe, and as I mentioned in my previous video, one that is extremely versatile. She reminds me a lot of Saren Prime's Gunrunner setup, where all of the damage is poured into weapons rather than abilities. However, Saren doesn't have nearly as much build diversity. Mirage has multiple level cap build variations and can thrive with each one. It only comes down to preference and playstyle at the end of the day. If you're looking to have a glass cannon Warframe and one that can tackle a variety of mission types easily, Mirage Prime is the frame you're looking for. I hope this video helped. Let me know what you think in the comments. As always, thank you for watching and happy farming. Stay safe.